District of Pennsylvania. He is a graduate of George Mason University School of Law, and everybody give a warm round of applause for our speaker, Josh Blackburn.
How's everyone doing?
Great.
You know, it's always a hard spot to bring after lunch because everyone's eaten, they're all settled, but I hope you enjoy this. So the story we're going to talk about today is a very famous Supreme Court case which you're probably all familiar with, the healthcare case. How many people have heard of it? Of course. How many people have been affected by it? Ooh. How many people know it actually does? Oh, gotcha. So this is actually the first time I'm giving this talk. I've actually written a book about the healthcare case, which should come out in September. You are the inaugural audience for this talk, so wonderful for you, and I hope it goes well. So this is a talk that's a story of not just law. It's also a story about politics. This is President Obama. The law is frequently called ObamaCare. Some people find that term offensive, but he doesn't. He actually likes it. He said that he hopes that historians call this law ObamaCare, and we'll learn why in a couple minutes. But this is also a story about Congress. This is a story about how Congress fought at every single stage to kind of kill this law and bring it back and fight for it.
They're still fighting it.
And they're still fighting over it. And they're still going to fight over it again here at the Supreme Court of the United States. This is a story that crosses all three branches of government. The President, the Congress, and the courts. And most importantly, it's a story about the Constitution. Now, the people found the Constitution, rediscovered it, and discovered why there might be problems with this healthcare law. So first, let's talk a little about healthcare policy. Healthcare policy has been a huge topic of debate in this country for as long as anyone can remember. Many presidents have tried to fix healthcare. Most of them haven't. But the key problem with healthcare is it's expensive. Very, very, very expensive. And what makes it so expensive is that it's unpredictable. No one can know when they'll be injured. No one can know why they'll be injured. No one can know what kind of coverage will be needed. So in order to hedge against that risk, we buy insurance, right? I assume most people here are a provider, they're employers by insurance here? Most people? No. Some independent contractors, perhaps?
No.
No? So there's a problem.
Got a rowdy bunch today. So.
No, this is good. I'll work on this. But there's a problem. A lot of people don't have insurance.
Yes.
And they can't afford it.
Yes.
So what do we do if people can't afford insurance? What do we do?
Go without.
You get sick. Well, the problem is when some people have insurance and other people don't. People don't have it, and what they call shift the cost, because if, say, someone without insurance goes to an emergency room, they can't be turned away. There's a federal law that says if a person without insurance goes to an ER, they have to provide services. But that gets expensive. What that does is it raises the rates for everyone else. So when people don't have insurance, insurance becomes more expensive for everyone. So there were a couple of attempts to fix this. You might recognize, remember this picture? In the early 1990s? This was in 1993. When President Clinton appointed First Lady Hillary Rodham Clinton to serve on a task force to reform healthcare. And she came up with this plan, this health security plan. And this would have effectively provided universal health coverage. It would have given everyone a little card that gives them access to health insurance, and would have made Medicaid for all. You know what Medicaid is or Medicare for seniors? It would give it Medicare for all. This met severe opposition in Congress. And it proved to be very unpopular. If you remember Newt Gingrich and the House Republicans, they ran on this in 1994 and reclaimed the House. How do you remember this picture? Anyone? Harry and Louise? Anyone remember this? No. These were famous commercials run by healthcare lobbies, where they had a regular ma and pa sitting around a table in mid-America saying, I don't know, ma, what are we going to do with this healthcare law? It's going to raise our costs. It's going to make things more expensive. This was I'm casting a shadow. I didn't realize that. This was a huge deal. And this ad, which was run by millions of times throughout the era, killed the law. So, Hillary Clinton's plan failed. That was 1993, 1994. So what happened between 1994 and 2008? My friends, what happened?
Healthcare costs went up.
Bingo. Healthcare costs continued to rise. There was no reform. There was nothing changed. The healthcare cost continues to go up and up and up. This all stayed the same, more or less, until 2008, when there were two people running for president against each other. Who were those two people? No, it's not McCain. It's Hillary and Obama. What people don't remember is that during the 2008 Democratic primaries, it was actually Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama who had the biggest debates about the healthcare law. McCain didn't really have a healthcare policy, so we'll put that aside. But it was really Clinton who tried to bring back. She said, I've gotten many scars from the 90s, and I've learned from my lessons. I'm going to try and do it right this time. I'm going to try and fix it. And this was Hillary's debate. Obama at the time, who had just been a senator for about 2 years, said, no, we also have to pay health insurance. But they had slightly different plans. Hillary Clinton's plan involves something called an individual mandate. Anyone know what that is? Everyone must buy insurance. What happens if you don't buy insurance? You pay money. That was Hillary Clinton's plan. She said the only way we can make sure everyone has insurance is to force them to have it. So rather than having Medicaid for all, which everyone's in automatically, we force people to buy it. And if they can't afford it, we'll give them a subsidy, but everyone has to buy it. Did Barack Obama want a mandate in 2008? No. Well, not even single payer. This is the irony people lost. We'll get to this in a minute, but Obama spent an entire 4 years arguing why we need a mandate. But in 2008, he never wanted a mandate. He opposed it. He said we should not force people to buy health insurance. The president said we shouldn't need this. It was an amazing turnaround. But in any event, Obama won the election, beat McCain handily, and when he was inaugurated, he took the oath, and actually had to take it again because it didn't work the first time he read it. You might remember. This is actually the photo of the do-over. This is like John Roberts take 2. And keep in mind, that's Chief Justice Roberts. He'll come back into the picture very soon. The dynamics between these two are fascinating. So when Obama was inaugurated, first and second time, actually, do you know President Obama took the oath 4 times? Once, when he was supposed to. Twice when it's to do the do-over because he messed up the first time. This year, he was inaugurated, the Constitution says he needs to be inaugurated on January 20th, which fell on a Sunday. So they had their fake inauguration on the Sunday and then a real one on Monday. So he's been inaugurated 4 times. He's actually tied President Franklin Roosevelt for the most inaugurations. It actually holds that honor. Anyway, so after he was inaugurated, one of his top priorities is healthcare reform. We got to fix this. We have to fix this. So what's interesting is President Obama effectively hired the analysts from the Clinton campaign. And they said, whoops, you know what, let's do a mandate. He totally flip-flopped his position, and now he said, we will force people to buy health insurance. That will be the plan. That will be the drill. And he did this through a law, which we'll talk about a lot today, called the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, PPACA, or ACA, or ObamaCare. I'll use the terms interchangeably. I use ObamaCare because more people know it. I don't like the term. I don't think it's even accurate because it wasn't really his law. It was really Nancy Pelosi's law. But I'll use it. I'll use it figuratively here. Or Hillary Care. He should not be getting most of the credit, but I'll use the term because people know it. But there was one big problem with the healthcare law, which is this old harsh document, which is called the Constitution. Now, if you go all the way back to 2009, you put your little time machines on. There was this group called the Tea Party. Remember them? They haven't done much recently, but you probably remember them. Remember they said we're taxed enough, there's too much taxes, and we need to have freedom and individual liberty and lower taxes and limited government. And one of the main pillars of the Tea Party movement was opposing ObamaCare, was opposing the individual mandate. That was their rallying cry. They protested across the country, in Harris County as well. Kill Obamacare, stop this law, this is unconstitutional. They marched on Washington. Hundreds of thousands of people went to the Capitol saying, do not pass this law. Do not impose Obamacare. We do not want this. The rallies were actually unbelievable in the quantity and the scope. And this movement really came out of nowhere, out of left field, or I guess right field, to kind of take over the constitutional dialogue. And this had a very strong impact on Congress. Because if you remember in 2008, the president had both houses with large majorities. He had 60 votes in the Senate. 60 votes means you can pass whatever you want. There's no filibuster. The minority party cannot stop it. They also had the entire House. There should have been no reason why this law had any trouble going through. This should have been sailing through. But there was a problem. The problem was this. A lot of people didn't like it. And a lot of moderate Democrats are saying, uh-oh, if I vote this way, I might lose my seat. What's going to happen? So the fight in the Senate was a lot tougher than it was supposed to be because of all this opposition from people. And this is Harry Reid. He was a Senate Majority Leader. And he was instrumental in getting this law passed through. And he was very good at getting the votes in the right spot. So this is the law. Looks simple, right? Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. Anyone know how long the bill is, how many pages? Let's have a, just throw out numbers. Who thinks how they can guess how many pages it was? 1,000? 2,000? 5,000? 2,700 pages. 2,700 pages. It was drafted mostly behind closed doors, and the senators voting on it didn't see it until right before they had to vote on it. I like this cartoon, if you can read it. It says, all in favor of the healthcare bill? Aye. The bill passes. Now, anybody know what's in it? So, you're all paralegals, and you know your lawyers don't actually read what they're supposed to, the people you work with. Congress is no different. They pass these 3,000-page bills without having a clue what's in it. Nancy Pelosi famously said, we'll have to pass the bill to find out what's in it. And she wasn't being entirely facetious. A lot of the things in the bill would only become evident years down the road. So this bill, which was drafted mostly in secret, no one had a chance to read it, was then rammed through the Congress in record time. This was not how you pass laws. And it was not done on any kind of bipartisan basis because there was strong opposition. Okay? In addition, senators have to be bribed. And I mean that in the most literal way. There were a couple moderate Democrats, one from Nebraska, one from Louisiana, who effectively got special carve-outs for their states. This is what's called the Cornhusker kickback. Anyone remember that? My little Cornhusker kickback being Nebraska fans in the house. Basically, Nebraska got a lot of money that other states didn't get, and that's how they were able to buy the vote of the senator. And all this was going forward to try to get an initial vote. They didn't need to pass the entire thing, they just needed to get a preliminary vote. And they got to the 60th vote to break the filibuster, and they won. And they got it through the Senate. This vote was held on Christmas Eve. I don't think Congress has met on Christmas Eve in like 100 years. But they needed to get this done before they had to go home to, roast chestnuts in the open fire. But this was done right before Christmas. But at the time, the Democrats had 60 seats. But something happened. Anyone know this guy? Ted Kennedy, may he rest in peace. He died. He was the 60th vote. When the bill was passed, the Democrat governor of Massachusetts, Deval Patrick, he appointed his successor, which was also a Democrat. So everything was fine. There were 60 votes. And there was going to be smooth sailing. But then something else happened. This guy. Remember Scott Brown? He won a special election. A Republican won a Senate election in Massachusetts. And he campaigned on the healthcare law. This was his entire campaign. He said, I will be the 40th vote to block this law. I'm sorry, the 41st vote to block this law. That's what he ran on. And he got voted in Massachusetts. My God. He replaced Ted Kennedy. Ted Kennedy spent his entire life fighting for healthcare reform, and this guy on the cover of Cosmo beat him. Remember the pickup truck? And yeah, this guy beat him. It's remarkable. But now, Harry Reid had a problem. The only way he was going to get this through is if he had 60 votes. He didn't have 60 votes anymore, meaning the Republicans could filibuster. So they had to get creative. So what they did was they took the bill they passed on Christmas Eve, and they turned that into the final bill. It wasn't supposed to be, but they turned it into it. And there are a lot of problems in it that will manifest later. So that's why a lot of the issues in the law weren't quite clear, because he had to pass like a draft. Think about like the first draft of the bill. That's what he had to pass. So then, after Scott Brown was elected, everyone thought this is done. People in Washington said, we're not going to do this. We can't get 60 votes. It's impossible. But in the House, we have the master of the House, Nancy Pelosi, right? She's like, guys, I got this, no problem. So she and her leadership committee found an ingenious way of passing the bill the Senate passed without having to have the Senate vote on it again. I won't bore you with the parliamentary proceedings, but it's very irregular. She was able to take a bill that wasn't meant to be complete, make it complete, and then have the Senate vote on it without having to vote on it. I swear, it'll boggle your mind, and I won't make you turn your lunch up. So just take my word for it. She had to really get creative. But there was still opposition in the House. This is, of course, John Boehner. At the time, he was a House Minority Leader. Now, he's the Speaker. Why? This. The Democrats lost the House because of this law. A lot of Democrats voted for this knowing that they'd lose their office. They knew the risk they were going to take, but this was so important to them they were willing to sacrifice it. Make of that what you will. But there was a serious political fight inside the House. The Republicans and Democrats were at odds the entire time. And I love this picture, because this just This just illustrates how many pages 2,700 pages is. I mean, this is just a lot of pages, which no one read. No one, I mean, lots of people read it after the fact, but no one read it before. But this law became really popular, and really, I'm sorry, very unpopular. I mean, I even like to bring this up. Anyone remember her? Snooki, Jersey Shore. There's a special tax in this law in 2,700 pages that places a tax on tanning salons. There's a tax on tanning salons. And then Snooki went on Jersey Shore and said she likes McCain because McCain would never tax her tanning salon. So then Obama goes in the View and he actually has to apologize to her, saying, no, we would never tax you, Snooki. But that's what the law exactly does. It taxes those who want to get tan. So this was very, very, like, contemporary. So then we have Nancy Pelosi saying, uh-oh, we got a problem, right? So, I like this cartoon because it explains it well, so I'll read it. We're amending a law that doesn't exist by passing a bill without voting on it. That's actually what happened. They took the Senate bill and they amended it. And by amending it, they crossed the entire thing out and added more stuff. So they effectively took 2,700 pages, crossed out all 2,700 pages, added 2,700 new pages, and then passed that, at which point the Senate affirmed that. In a process of reconciliation. Because if the Senate reconciles what the House passed, then they don't need 60 votes, they need 50. So the Queen of Hearts was able to take a bill that wasn't supposed to be passed, cross the entire bill out, add a new bill, vote on that, and then have the Senate confirm it. Bear with me. So then, it passes the House. And if you notice, I don't know if you can read this, but 219 yay, 210 no's. There were 34 Democrats across the aisle voted against it. This was very unpopular. The Democrats had like a 50-vote majority. This should have been smooth sailing, not even close. But it passed both houses, kind of, and went on to the White House. The president had the signing ceremony. He had people. He actually uses, you can see here, all these are pens. He has 23 different pens, which he used to sign to give them souvenirs. He writes a little bit, hands these out as souvenirs. So he signed the law. And everyone's really happy, right? Piece of cake, we're done. This was March 23rd, 2010, right? That came to the story? No, not even close. So, again, we have this problem with the Constitution. Is this thing constitutional? Is Obamacare driving a hole through the Constitution? So I will bore you with a very small constitutional lecture, okay? There's something called the Commerce Clause. The Constitution gives the federal government the power to regulate commerce between the states. So originally this meant if there was a boat going from New York to New Jersey, Congress could regulate and pass laws about it, right? Simple enough. But it's gotten much more complex in our modern industrial state. So let me ask you a question. Say you're a farmer. There might be people who lived on farms, and you grow wheat on your farm. And you only grow this wheat to feed your own chickens and pigs and your family. Okay? Who here thinks that's commerce between the states or only commerce within the state? So who here thinks it's between the states? Right? Commerce within one state. Okay. No. So this is a very famous case called Wickard versus Filburn. This is Farmer Filburn. He had a farm in Ohio. And that's Claude Wickard, the ominous-looking Secretary of Agriculture. The Supreme Court held that merely growing wheat on your own farm, it never leaves it. You just use it to feed your own chickens and pigs and to feed your family. That's interstate commerce, and Congress can regulate it. So this case stands for the idea that Congress can even regulate stuff that never leaves one state as long as it has some sort of effect on the interstate market. Okay? I'll give you another example. This is Angel Raish. She suffers from very advanced form of cancer. Very, very ill. Does anyone know what this thing is? So you're all good. No one knows what this is? It's a marijuana vaporizer. Set you up, right? You thought it was like a chemotherapist. No, it's a marijuana vaporizer. She's inhaling marijuana. The only thing that can provide this woman any kind of refuge from her pain is marijuana, medicinal marijuana. That's it. Everything else doesn't work. And she's been suffering for almost 10 years with this horrible form of cancer. She's still alive, but in not good shape. She grew marijuana on her own farm. It never left California. It was only in her farm. And it was perfectly legal under state law. The feds raided her farm. The Supreme Court said, even though the marijuana never leaves her farm, it can affect an interstate market for marijuana sales. Anyway, what? What market is there for selling marijuana? It's illegal. You can't do it. But this is what the Supreme Court held, I think it was in 2003, that you can have a market for your legal product, and you can't do this. I mean, you're all smart people. You deal with lawyers. This is stupid. It doesn't make sense. But the Supreme Court held us that even if you grow marijuana on your own farm, it doesn't work. This guy, Randy Barnett, was a lawyer. I'll come back to him. He was actually the lawyer that helped develop the healthcare case. So it's funny he was in both. This is actually Angel Raish on the phone when she found out she lost her case. Because now she's basically doomed to a life of either suffering pain or breaking the law. And she really has no middle ground. So just this is the face of the healthcare case. So now we come to broccoli. Who here likes broccoli? Anyone? Really? I hate it. Does anyone hate broccoli? Oh God, I guess there are a lot of moms in here. I don't know. If you remember, President George H.W. Bush famously said, "I'm president now. My mom always made me eat broccoli. I will not eat broccoli anymore." Everyone remember that? Okay, people don't like broccoli. But the reason why this is relevant is that the individual mandate makes people buy healthcare, right? Well, the reason why we have that is we want people to be healthier. What if the government said, we want people to buy broccoli, because broccoli will make you healthier. You eat broccoli, you'll grow big and strong, good to the president, and you'll be healthy. Can the government make you buy broccoli? Can the government make you, Stewie doesn't like it, can the government make you buy broccoli? Who here thinks yes? Who here thinks no? They can make you buy insurance, they can make you buy broccoli. That's what the Supreme Court held. We'll come back to that. I like these pictures from The Simpsons. Okay, let me ask you another question. Say General Motors is in bad shape, like Detroit's going bad. Could Congress pass a law saying you have to buy a GM vehicle? Next time you want to replace your car, you have to buy a GM vehicle. You can't buy a foreign car. Who thinks that's okay?
I think it's okay if they do it.
If we think that health insurance is an important interest and want to cut costs, right? We let people buy broccoli because it'll make them healthier. If we think that having a strong economy is important and Detroit's in bad shape, why can't we just make people buy GM vehicles? This is what we call a slippery slope. That if we allow Congress to make people buy health insurance, then they can make people buy broccoli. And if we allow them to buy broccoli, then they can buy GM cars. And this slope keeps going down and down and down. So that's your mini constitutional law lecture for today. This is your CLE portion. And so you can check that off your box if you're not paying attention now. But this brings us back to the law. This is actually the signature. You see, it's very jagged. Each of these is a different pen. You can kind of see where it jumps off the page. He used 23 different pens. He draws like a little bit. And he's a lefty too, so it's kind of, you can actually notice that. So, bill was signed March 23rd, 2010, around 10:15 a.m. in the morning, right? What do you think the first thing that happens is, within minutes after this law signed? Race to the court. It was a literal race. I'm not kidding you. They actually were not on foot. They have electronic filing. You all know what that is now. But they raced to the courthouse. And there were two main groups who were filing suit. One was a group of about 15 states based out of Florida, and these states were challenging it, and they filed suit in Florida. Virginia was filing suit by themselves, and Virginia filed the suit within a few minutes. Florida got there first. They got there about 8 minutes before. Florida got there later. The reason why they wanted to be first is because they thought, if we're first, we get to the Supreme Court faster. They wanted to take this all the way to the Supreme Court. There was no question where this was going. So, first, I'll talk about this case. It was actually Virginia. They filed second, but they got a ruling first. And this is Virginia Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli. He's currently running for the governorship of Virginia. He filed suit in Virginia, and he won. A judge ruled in his favor. Amazingly, the judge said, this law is unconstitutional. It is unprecedented for Congress to force people to purchase health insurance. They can't do this. It's a violation of the Constitution. President Obama wasn't happy about this. This was not a good day, because he had thought this battle was over. Because he thought, I won the election, I got this passed through Congress, now these silly judges are voting against me. But the thing was, this law wasn't popular. It was very unpopular. If you ask the majority of Americans at the time, they opposed this law. They didn't want it. They didn't think Congress could make you buy health insurance. Maybe there are other ways of reforming the healthcare market. Okay? The second case was a biggie. This one was filed in Florida with Judge Vincent. There were 23 states involved. Eventually 26. Think about that. 26 states were challenging this law. That is more than a majority. I'm sorry, that is more than 50% of the states in this country opposing this law. Never before in the history of this country have so many states opposed a federal law. That just has never, ever, ever happened. Judge Vinson, well, with this picture, what do you think Judge Vinson did? He said the entire thing is unconstitutional. The entire thing. He just threw the entire thing out the window. Done. Kaput. This was a big deal. Because this was the first time a judge had ever said the entire Affordable Care Act is unconstitutional. Okay? So you're all lawyers. If you lose in the trial court, where do you go? Appeals. There have been cases in maybe 8 or 9 different states about this. And then there were appeals to 4 different circuits. There was appeals to the 11th, which is right here in Atlanta, the 4th, which is in Richmond, the 6th, which is in Cincinnati, and also the D.C. Circuit, which is in Washington, D.C. There were appeals in almost every court in the country. This was on its way to the Supreme Court. It was racing there. It could not get there quickly enough. So, a couple of lawyers who might know, this was actually Paul Clement, who's probably the top Supreme Court advocate of a generation. And this is Neil Katyal, who was at the time working in the Solicitor General's office. These are the 2 lawyers who would duke it out in the courts of appeals. And they had 3 battles. And Katyal, for the government, won 2. The other guy won 1. So the first case was at the 6th Circuit Court of Appeals. This was in Cincinnati, where I previously clerked. And in this case, the court actually held in favor of the government. They said that this law is constitutional, that you can do this. Notably, one judge, Jeffrey Sutton, who was a Republican appointee of George W. Bush, a very prominent conservative, he voted to uphold the law. This was significant because it was the first time a prominent Republican judge had upheld this law. That was a big deal. As you can imagine, this will be my Obama happy picture. I've used this over and over again when he wins. This is the Obama happy picture. He was thrilled, saying, "I agree. Judge Sutton did it right. I like Judge Sutton, right?" The next one was at the 11th Circuit, which is held in Atlanta. This case didn't go so good for the government. There were 2 judges there, Chief Judge Dubina and Judge Hull, and they jointly ruled that this law is unconstitutional. Uh-oh. So this is what we call a circuit split. You might have heard that word before. When you have one circuit saying one thing, the other circuit saying another thing, that means it's going to the Supreme Court, because they have to resolve this difference of opinions. So, when they had this split, this is going to the Supreme Court. And you now have, for the first time, a federal court of appeals finding the Affordable Care Act unconstitutional. Unprecedented. And Obama said, we got to stop this. This is the Obama unhappy picture. We got to stop this. There was one other case in the 4th Circuit Court of Appeals in Richmond. Happy. He won. And then there was one more case. But before Obama got to the last case, he got to the Solicitor General. This is Donald Verrilli. I'll come back to him in a minute. But he was now in charge. Katyal was out. Verrilli was in. They had one last case at the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals in Washington, D.C. And notably, the government won. This is Judge Brett Kavanaugh, another prominent conservative. He served in George W. Bush's White House. Very prominent conservative. And he said the law, well, he did not strike down the law. But he did so in a very funny way, saying we should wait till this law goes into effect. The law doesn't go into effect until 2015. Let's wait a couple of years, see what happens, then we'll come back to it. Which is a sensible position. But both Kavanaugh and Sutton before him did not want to tackle the merits. They both resolved this in a roundabout way because they didn't want the court to be injected into these politics. They wanted to save the law. This will be similar to what John Roberts did. We'll come back to that in a couple of minutes. So then we have President Obama. Hey, we're happy. So, Courts of Appeals, what's the scoreboard? Obama 3, challengers 1. Looking pretty good, but still enough to go to the Supreme Court. So here we go. SCOTUS, Supreme Court of the United States. This is where it's all going to resolve by these 9 friendly people in robes. In the middle, you got Chief Justice Roberts, and Justice Scalia, Justice Kennedy, Justice Thomas, as well as Justice Ginsburg there, Justice Breyer, Justice Alito, Justice Sotomayor, and Justice Kagan. All 9 of these people would soon decide the fate of this healthcare law. One of the most recent additions was Sotomayor. We have these really nice pictures of the president in the Supreme Court chambers with all the justices. Everyone's palling around and they're all happy. They're smiling for pictures. They're not going to be smiling for much longer. This is good. Because the relationship between these two gentlemen is fascinating. They're both Harvard Law School graduates. They were both in the law review. They both excelled through the ranks. They're both very prominent political people. And they both wound up in their respective highest positions in the land. One, the Chief Justice of the United States. The other is President. But there's already been some friction between the Supreme Court and the President. This is Justice Alito. He was appointed by George W. Bush in, I think, 2006. Anyone remember this picture? Does this look familiar to anyone?
Yeah.
So it's a 2010 State of the Union. This was a couple days after the Citizens United case was argued. The President was talking about this case, saying the Supreme Court has reversed 100 years of campaign finance law. They've allowed corporations to spend unlimited money on elections, right? And what did Justice Alito do? Do you remember?
Yelled out.
He shook his head and he mouthed, "Not true." So you have the President criticizing the Supreme Court when they're sitting there, and then you have Alito mouthing, that's an animated GIF, that's not what actually happened, but he did say, "Not true," and nodded his head. So there's already some bad blood between the Supreme Court and the President. This has been going on for a while. Notably, Alito hasn't attended the State of the Union since. Scalia never attends it. He calls it a juvenile spectacle. Thomas never attends it, but Roberts is always there. We just had the State of the Union last week. So then we have the Supreme Court. This is the big ticket in town. People have been waiting for this for 3 years. So, are there cameras in the Supreme Court? No. What's the only way to see what goes on inside? Wait online. Wait online. This is the worst rock concert you've ever wait online for because there's sprinklers. I've done it several times. I've done this several times. So waiting for the Supreme Court, they have basically 50 tickets available to the general public. 50. So if you're the first 50 in line, you get tickets. How long do you think it took to wait outside to get tickets to the Supreme Court for this case? Let's get an estimate.
2 weeks, 4 days.
92 hours. Sleeping on the sidewalk in Washington, D.C. in March. This isn't Houston. It's cold. It's rainy. And every night at 2 a.m. the sprinklers go off. You have to actually camp out along the sidewalk. You can see it here better. You camp out along the sidewalk. I've done this several times. It's not fun. It's cold. There's nowhere to sit. And the sprinklers come on. And that's what jars you to wait. People waited 96 hours outside the street. And the worst part, they have paid line waiters. They get paid for it. And the worst part is the paid line waiters save several spots. So say if you're number 49 in line, and the guy in front of you saves 3 spots, you're bumped out. This happens. And the Supreme Court police don't really care. So the last time I was there, I was number 50. I was the last person to get in. I had previously been number 45. So a number of people had cut. So people waited for 4 days to get inside. But eventually, the argument day came. All eyes turned to the Supreme Court. And I love this picture because this guy was there and he was ringing his bell and looking very, very, very patriotic. So what actually does it mean for there to be argument at the Supreme Court? Well, usually each side gets an hour. So each side gets 30 minutes, so it's 1 hour of argument. This case had 3 days of arguments. 5.5 hours. That is unprecedented. They haven't had that in decades. The court put each day a different topic. One day they'll talk about commerce, one day they'll talk about taxing power, one day they'll talk about Medicaid, another day they'll talk about whether the law can be severed from the mandate. They had 3 different days, actually 3.5 days to be precise. This is the inside of the Supreme Court. Has anyone been there? So unless you're there, you'll never see the inside, because there are no cameras. But this is one of the few pictures they allow out. And again, there's no cameras, so the only way you can know what's going on is A, read the transcripts, 500 pages worth, which I did, or B, you can listen to it, which I did also. C-SPAN broadcasts the arguments within, I think, maybe an hour or 2 after the case finished. They just played on the air. So what happened? This is what the inside of the Supreme Court looks like on argument day. It's really a sight to be seen. There's so much drama and spectacles. So the session begins at 10 a.m. on the dot. And see those big red curtains behind the bench? Immediately at 10 o'clock, almost as if by magic, the justices emerge and they kind of just walk forward. And they're there, they appear. And you have no idea where they come from. It's 10 o'clock and then boom, they're there. It's kind of scary. And then here you have the press corps, you have all the reporters sitting. And in the front few sections you have all the members of the Supreme Court bar. It's not that big. It looks huge in this picture, but it's really not. The ceilings are very high, which creates the illusion. But it's a beautiful building. If you can ever go, I encourage you. It's a lot of fun to watch. So here we have the matchup. We have the two big lawyers arguing. This is going to be Donald Verrilli, who's arguing for the government, and this is Paul Clement. Paul is arguing on behalf of the challenge. And they have simple arguments to make. Clement does say, listen, it's unprecedented in this country for the government to make you buy health insurance. This violates the Constitution. You can't do this. He says, no. It is constitutional for two reasons. One, Congress has the power to regulate commerce. Remember the Commerce Clause we talked about? This is commerce between the states. Insurance is a multi-billion-dollar, industry. We can regulate it. Or two, this is the backup argument, or maybe the primary argument, Congress has the power to tax. The individual mandate is not really a mandate. No, it's not a mandate. Instead, it's a tax on people who don't buy health insurance. Let me say it again. There's no mandate forcing you to buy insurance. Instead, if you fail to buy insurance, you pay a tax. Everyone get that? What's the difference?
Still paying.
Semantics. Semantics, right? That's how it's been described, semantics. But it makes a big difference. Why? Because, what?
It's constitutional that way.
Right. Congress's powers to tax are very, very, very broad. Its commerce powers aren't. There's a very famous story. Francis Perkins, who was President FDR's Secretary of Labor. And this was right around the time they were thinking of creating Social Security. And a lot of people are saying, you can't have Social Security. How do you force people to pay this? And how do you force people to get these payments? How are we going to do this? So she goes to a dinner with who was then the Justice of the Supreme Court, Hughes. And she says, Justice, what do we do? And Hughes says very famously, the tax power, my dear, it's all you need. All he needs. So although this case had been argued for almost 4 years about the Commerce Clause, at the Supreme Court, this guy, Don Verrilli, who should get a lot of credit because this was his baby, said, you know what, we're going to make this taxing argument. We're going to say that there is no mandate. There is no mandate. There's only a tax on those who fail to purchase health insurance. This was the argument that saved the law for President Obama. This argument which really no one raised before. This was the key. And the thing was, at the time, almost no one noticed it. I didn't. But like maybe 2 people I could find who actually noticed at the time. So Verrilli gets up there. And as is tradition, you say, Mr. Chief Justice, and may it please the court. That's the beginning, and you begin your arguments. But he had a problem. Anyone know what I'm referring to? He choked. He had been practicing arguing so much the past few weeks that his voice, he lost it. He took a glass of water right before he got up there and went down the wrong pipe. Everyone, that's happened to everyone, right? He started speaking, and he coughed. Then he repeated it, and he coughed. He couldn't even breathe. It had gone down the wrong pipe. He was unable to breathe. For about 7 seconds, he was silent. He's sitting there before the Supreme Court of the United States, coughing, silent. You can actually hear in the recording, he goes for a glass of water, lifts it up, and he jingles it. And you hear the ice cubes clinking, he takes a sip. He couldn't breathe. Not a good start. People said he choked, quite literally and figuratively. But he recovered. And very importantly, he stuck to his script. He did not give the justices anything else other than what they needed to hear. He kept saying over and over again, if you can find this law constitutional as a tax, you should do it. Be restrained. Don't strike down law unless you need to. If there's a way to find it constitutional, you should save it. A saving construction, if you will, where you can save the law. The only problem with that is in order to save the law, you have to ignore the fact that there's a mandate. You have to ignore the fact that it says you have to buy health insurance. You have to effectively delete a sentence from this law. So remember, 2,700 pages. This law is 2,700 pages. The most important sentence is the mandate, and he wants to delete that one sentence. He said to the court, pretend that sentence is not there. The most important sentence, what everyone's been arguing for 4 years about, pretend it's not there. Read it differently. Okay. So we argued. People thought he did a really bad job. Because no one really got what he was saying. No one understood why he was doing it the way he was. People said, this is just not constitutional. So then Paul Clement gets up there, and he kills it. This might be one of the best advocacy performances of our generation. He was spectacular. He went up there, no notes, cold, and he just killed it. I think he did everything you could have expected him to do. I mean, you can't say enough good things about this guy. I think he's under 40. I think he's under 50. He's argued like maybe 70 cases for the Supreme Court. Just it's unbelievable. But of course you have Justice Scalia, who likes a little bit of a wise ass. And he once asked the government, can the government make you buy broccoli? So this image of broccoli made it all the way to the Supreme Court. They also asked, can the government make you buy a GM vehicle? So we see these seeds of Tea Party rhetoric seeping into the U.S. Supreme Court, which is just fascinating. So after the case was argued, everyone had his eyes on this guy. This is Anthony Kennedy, who is frequently called the swing vote. All different things. Everyone said, among other things, everyone said, how is Kennedy going to vote? Will he save this law? Will he strike it down? What's Kennedy going to do? How is he going to vote? But the eye should have been on this guy, John Roberts. Everyone was looking at the wrong person. Everyone was trying to persuade Kennedy when this was a guy who was in question. So the case was argued into March 2012, so 6 months ago, or 8 months ago. The intervening months were fascinating, because what went on outside the court is not nearly as interesting as what went on inside the court. There are rumors, which I either confirm or deny, that the Chief Justice might have switched his vote. That at one point he voted to strike down this law, then had second thoughts, and said, you know what, I'm going to uphold this law. The reason why, purportedly, he did that was he was afraid. What was he afraid of? He was afraid that if the Supreme Court struck down the Obama signature law, it would put the court into the political realm. We had an election coming up. He did not want the court to be part of that election. He did not want President Obama to campaign on the court. He did not want Obama to say, this act of the Supreme Court is bad, and you need to vote for me to get rid of it and appoint me justice. He didn't want that. Roberts wanted to have a good relationship with the executive. He realized, I'm going to be here for a long time. This guy's gone in 4 years. I'm going to be here for another 40. He's in good health. He'll be here for a long time. It's funny, my grandfather, in fact, this last night, he actually passed away last night. He always joked that, he was a big Democrat, he always joked that George Bush appointed the youngest whippersnapper he could, the youngest guy he could. He's been around forever. And he always said, John Roberts has such bad integrity. He'd always say that. And he was right before anyone even knew it. So, for whatever reason, ultimately Roberts did change his vote. Or did not. We don't know, but we know how he voted. So decision day came. In the Supreme Court, you don't know what happens right away. So there's no cameras. So what happens is you have all the justices come out at 10 a.m. and you have one justice says, I have the opinion in this case. They don't tell you the outcome. They read about it. So for the reporters who were inside the court on decision day, they were there for almost 20 minutes before they realized what was happening. Why? Because John Roberts said, I have the opinion in the healthcare case. People said, yes, we won, right? Everyone got excited. And he started saying, this law violates the Commerce Clause. And people saying, yes, we won. But, he says, but now we turn to the taxing power. And that was the, if you pardon Frank, the oh shit moment. I talked to a number of people who were in the court that said, oh my God. One of my good friends who did a lot of work in this case kept saying, oh my God, please take it back, don't do this, stop, please stop. So John Roberts proceeded to say that this law is constitutional under the taxing power. Everyone in the room was dumbfounded. No one thought this was coming. The government was happy as hell because they won. So what John Roberts effectively had to do is distort the language of the Constitution, or of the statute. The president had made a big deal saying this is not a tax. He kept saying this is not a tax. He went on TV and said this is not a tax. Why? What president wants to raise taxes? No one. No one wants to raise taxes. So he kept calling it a penalty. If you read the statute, it says it's a penalty. But John Roberts said, no. It's not a penalty. It's actually a tax. Why? Because he can use a taxing power, which is very broad. So, I like this cartoon because you have Obama saying this is not a tax, you have Roberts saying this is not a penalty, and this says this is no longer protection against covered intrusion. Roberts saved the law. How did he save it? He construed something that called a penalty as a tax. He crossed out words in the law. That's what he did, and he admitted it. He called it his, quote, saving construction. This is how he saved the law. And he said, as a judge, I have a duty to save the law. If I can find it constitutional, I will. and he saved the law. So now Americans will be burdened by this tax. What's interesting is, I think I asked you earlier before, if you don't buy insurance under the mandate, what's the penalty? And you said you pay a fine, right? Generally speaking, if you don't pay your taxes, what happens to you? You go to jail. It's a crime. It's a crime. But not here. Why? Because Virility, the guy who choked, he told the court, Your Honor, I've checked with the government. If you do not buy insurance, you are not committing a crime. There is no criminal penalty here. They basically defined a tax unlike any other, called a unicorn tax. My friend Ilya calls it that. Because no one's seen it before, and no one will ever see it again. This law is a tax that if you don't pay it, there's no crime. So what happens if you don't pay it? Unclear. But it doesn't matter. This is enough for Robert to save it. What happened next is fascinating. Everyone had their eyes on Anthony Kennedy. Will he vote to strike down the law or not? Maybe he'll strike down some of it, but keep other parts? No. He would have struck down the entire damn thing. He would have thrown it all out, baby with the bathwater in the garbage. Done. Finito. Kaput. He wrote a joint opinion, which is also very rare, with the other four conservatives. Although, if you actually read it, it was probably mostly Kennedy and Scalia, because that's how they write their style. And they would have struck down the entire thing, got rid of it root and branch. Okay? Justice Thomas, who concurred separately, said, screw this, all these cases are wrong. Go back to the Wickard and Filbert case, the farmer case with the wheat. He said, that's wrong also. Let's get rid of all this junk. He's a very proud originalist, and he's not afraid to say it. He's like, this is stupid. But what's interesting is that the opinion from Scalia, Thomas, Roberts, and Alito, although they agreed with the Chief Justice about the Commerce Clause, they didn't join his opinion. So all five of them agreed that this violates the Commerce Clause, but the dissent never mentioned Roberts' opinion. And some have speculated that's a form of resentment. I don't necessarily agree. I think there's enough to say that there are 5 votes from the Commerce Clause, but there was definitely some kind of antagonism. Interestingly enough, Breyer and Kagan, these are 2 Democratic appointees, one by Clinton, one by Obama, they actually joined the Chief Justice's opinion in part. Just curious, we don't know why. These 2 ladies, Justice Ginsburg and Justice Sotomayor, they voted together and say that this entire thing is constitutional and that the majority should not even go so far to talk about the Commerce Clause. In other words, if this is okay under the taxing power, you don't need to address the Commerce Clause. So this was what was going on inside the court, right? Outside the court, no one knew what was going on. The way it works is exactly at 10:07. The Public Information Office hands out paper copies of the opinion. The opinion was about 200 pages thick. It's really thick. You had, I'm not kidding you, reporters in tennis shoes running out from the court to get to the cameras in front of the court. They ran as fast as they could. Why? They wanted to be the first on air, the first to report it. So, CNN was the first to report it. Oh, it says mandate struck down. That's not right, is it? And if you watch the video, it's pretty funny. You have this poor reporter, and I do have sympathy for her. She's running, and she has the opinion flipped open. She's trying to kind of look at it like, it's unconstitutional. Why? Because she only read the first 2 pages. And she was turned to page 3. It was said, but it's okay under the taxing power. In other words, she stopped at the part where Robert said it's okay as a Commerce Clause. She didn't go to the 3rd page. And you can actually see it in the video. She has the first 2 pages flipped over. She doesn't have the 3rd page flipped over. So CNN had this wonderful headline, which goes to the internet we have forever. But Obama didn't know either. He saw CNN. He was in the White House watching CNN. And for about 7 minutes, he thought it was unconstitutional. He was totally in the dark. Because there's no cameras in the court. You don't know what happened. Okay? Fox News, same deal. They reported that this is unconstitutional. So now Obama's seeing 2 networks reporting it. And he's going, oh my God. One person said he was, quote, crestfallen. He must have been devastated, right? But eventually, we get happy Obama. Right? Someone went to his office and told him, Mr. President, you won. And then he was just absolutely exhilarated. He later said to Rolling Stone, I never had any doubt. He said, yeah, whatever. And we have this again, it's Dewey defeats Truman iPad pose. So what happens afterwards? Really? Solicitor General, he was triumphant. John Roberts cut apart the Constitution to save it. Glenn Beck and the right wing, they flipped the hell out. They called John Roberts a coward, and they started saying we need to, get rid of him. This guy, we probably forgot about him already, Mitt Romney, he ran on a campaign to replace and repeal Obamacare. The only problem was, flashback, he had imposed an individual mandate in his own state. In Massachusetts, he had his own healthcare law that forced people to buy health insurance. He could not argue this. So at every single debate, when healthcare came up, he had to lose. This was the worst possible candidate to run against Obama and healthcare. It was not. You could not have used fiction to make up a worst possible candidate. I couldn't conceive of someone to be worse. And after Obama won, the repeal also died. So then brings us back full circle. This was Obama's third oath. He did the fourth one the next day. This was the constitutional one. So we have John Roberts again, the president swearing him in. He did it right this time. And actually, I think one of Obama's daughters said, "Good job, Dad," like kind of sarcastic, because it was actually Obama's fault the first time because he didn't check notes with that side. So we have a healthcare law. We have a constitution. But I think we have two figures going forward. One, Barack Obama. He got his healthcare law through, but he's only going to be here for another 4 years. John Roberts is looking forward. He's going to be here for a long, long, long time to come. We got affirmative action, voting rights, education, abortion, all these issues which will go through him. He didn't want to burn the Capitol on this one law that really made no difference. This law didn't affect anything else. This wasn't like affirmative action or abortion, that decade-long process. He's looking ahead. He's looking ahead to the Constitution and see how it develops. And I think that's really the story of this challenge, is how the people respond and react to the Constitution going forward. Thank you very much for your time. Any questions? Any questions?
Have you seen, are you familiar with the Kaiser Family Foundation website?
Yeah, they have really good polling data.
They, I don't know about that part, but I did know that they had a subsidy calculator, so that if you go to kff.org and search for subsidy, you can find out how much your premium is going to be.
Yeah, most premiums go up because of this. I mean, the thing is, if you force people to buy health insurance, costs go up. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. We really appreciated your presentation. It was thoughtful. It was funny. Job well done. And just as a small token of our little nonprofit appreciation, here's a Starbucks card for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Everybody, Job Platinum. Okay, guys, we're going to give away